Hello everyone. Today, the title of this episode is The Hidden Depths of Man's Mind. And what that really means is that the voice that you're hearing right now is one man communicating how he understands what mind means in this moment. Mr.Within is communicating that the mind, its hidden depths are beyond our conception because it is that moment where you're aware of manifestation. That moment where you're aware what you're going to say but you haven't said it, and the minute you do, it's as if your voice has just been like a new wave. As you begin to see where your journey is taking you, you see that you must confront certain aspects of life that are not soft. You need to confront the fact that you don't know some things and you're present in certain scenarios, but you also need to confront the fact that you know some things and you're present in the scenario. When observing what the mind is, at the beginning of my life, I was mainly focused on thinking that I'm a body and that the mind, I don't know what it is, but it's what's giving me an awareness through the body. Now that part doesn't change because that part was never interpreted. I just knew I was present. I knew I was aware. But I later on realized that there was still something that felt incomplete. And what was this sense of incompletion in a world so vast, in a world so big? Well, I noticed the sense of incompletion was that as consciousness, when you focus on one position for too long, you will see you're observing it. It's as if the minute you look at something, it's not that nothing's happening. In your mind, worlds are opening. I show you a photo and you remember many things. So the mind is first identified at first by what we remember and what we are aware of. The present moment is like a memory that is not moving away. It's always here. You know, you're sitting on the grass, the park is right there. But you will see that your awareness of this present moment, it's as if like from that platform, you're suddenly jumping back to other memories. And then by really diving into other memories, then you can jump back to the present. Do you see this? It's as if the mind conceives the intentions of one platform, one room, one dimension with another dimension. So it's not that everything is just very, very solid and without intelligence. It's not that this is all objective without intelligence. It's just that the way this is being kept solid is actually not solid at all. The fact that you see that fruit on that tree, it is on some subtle level an instantaneous relationship of existence, not a cause and effect relationship. And as this cause and, but it's simultaneously present in the sense that in an instant it is conceived to then be caused and then to have an effect. When you think of where all these thoughts are, or where all this understanding or the meaning of my words is coming from, it is coming from you. So the receiver in this life is very crucial to be aware of. You are a receiver of life. And so your interpretation is very important. Because if it's unclear to you, no one can fix it but yourself. It's like that moment where there's a problem in your reality and you're not telling anybody, so you're still in it and you're not taking an action. It's very important to realize that when you don't know what's going on, communicate, because your communication is an action. So if you, in that moment, if you can't stand up, just communicate, and you will see eventually your communication will be received in a way. When you become aware of a sense of instant observance that is always present, you can see that your experience of your spectrum will become more clear. So after a certain amount of deep self-contemplation, my awareness had shifted. So as I stood up from where I was sitting on the park, I began to understand that my contemplation has been turned into some form of wisdom. It's as if wisdom is that thing where you've really engaged with it and you know. In other words, we can see wisdom not just in how the Japanese ceramic master explains to you what's going on, but also in how his hands are moving and the whole process is happening, and how the system is being maintained by a man who is no longer thinking about what to do. You see, we wonder if there was a greater mind, which all bodies were present in, who would be that mind? And you see, the question that a body asks is never as clear as what the presence of the being knows. The presence of the being is simply that it doesn't matter what kind of character you're in a story, you are aware of the storyteller's presence. You're aware of the presence of the cosmos. It's as if you're not just opening your house door and going to work, you're going into the cosmos. You're walking in front of all existence. That moment where I fed pigeons, all galaxies were observing it. And so it's very important to see that your own wisdom is actually what you are consciously, very clearly knowing from the experience that you've had. So that moment you fell down, your knee was inspiring you to get up, regardless of how much it was hurt. That moment where a sense of you failed was inspiring your whole totality to expand in new ways. And it's sometimes a good feeling. A lot of people think failure is bad. No, failure is just one side of a process. It's an outcome. So you can choose to make that outcome hell for you, or even try to make the other outcome heaven for you, but no, you don't need it. Because why bring heaven and hell into simple action? So what that means is, let's say if I was to design a machine right now, if I was to invent some kind of device, if I, for every device, try to see, like for example, how would I say it? If every device had a world connected to it, every piece of this device had a world connected to it, I would see that it would be my task to connect worlds. Because every piece of a machine has a certain purpose. It's like that moment where, for writers, they say, every sentence you write must be moving the whole world forward of your story. So similarly, every piece, for example, in this invention, let's say I would make, has a world to it. And so if I choose to not treat that device, the parts of that machine, as an object, I will bring so much of my own internal reality in it that it's as if I wouldn't even make it. I just look at the pieces and I'll be like, what a beautiful world, Because my own mind can give significance to insignificant things. And so we see that man is a given significance, but it's understanding that its significance is at first being understood through a cause and effect relationship, but as one is constantly experiencing cyclically cause and effect, you will see that there is no cause and effect, but one moment that held it all. And that one moment will be an instant of knowing. It's as if that moment where that great man gave a great speech, it was not him speaking. It was the moment speaking. And if you choose to hold on to imagery which you find is blinding you and you're not doing anything about it, you're literally sitting on a chair that is a reality in which you are accepting incapability. Possibility is your intention to be aware of the great living that is occurring. What that means is that, let's say if there was some form of interaction between the human species and other species, let's say, or not other species, but let's say an extraterrestrial, let's say, race, you would see that what is valuable when you look at that spectrum is that human life is valuable. Human ideas dissipate when the priority becomes the life force. The priority of people has not become their life force, it has become the routine that is supposed to cultivate some form of forced life. Your life force is that awareness of your totality. Your totality is unspeakable because you know it. And as you know it, you will walk realizing that you will stand in the fire of social pressure, like some of the greatest gurus who have just stood still in meditation as the fires of condemnation have just been upon them. And as they have stood in and the ashes have just the wind blew the ashes from their shoulders, you will see your intention as a life force will be an inspiration beyond what the linear mind could conceive. You will suddenly see your mind is opening in dimensions where you could not open those doors. But those doors are opening because you're paying attention to the room and realizing that you're not in one room, but a multidimensional self of being an awareness that has an ability to confront everything through its knowing very transcendently as nothing. So what that means is that moment when Neo in the movie Matrix, let's have a Matrix moment, and Neo in the movie, when he dodged the bullet, it wasn't a linear mind who could do that. It was the fact that he trusted in a sense of him being greater than he is, that it just manifested. So you see a part of you, for example, you might be young right now and you might not know what your talents are, but suddenly you will see that in maybe like 5 years or something, you might suddenly pick up a brush, and as you pick up this brush to paint, you just notice that you have no art experience, but you have such life experience. And so if art is, again, scientifically approached where they're teaching you the structured view, then your unstructured view of life will never communicate properly. Do you know? It's like that moment where Picasso drew his first painting. He was like, I'm drawing this for no one because no one's ever seen something like what I'm going to draw. And that intensity just manifested into such great brilliance. And so perhaps in that moment, many muses have seen great men to recognize that their greatness was never for them. That your talent, as you reach the peak of its mastery, is the gift to the world. It's a natural phenomena. It happens just like you're breathing, and as your heart has always known, the rhythm is being followed. Man must move beyond the structures of ideology and through a knowing of his unstructured self, work with many worlds that are simultaneously present. We are multidimensional beings. It is now time to very clearly explore ourselves. What that means is when I say multidimensional beings, you must go and see if you are a multidimensional being. You must go and see what the external world means, what the internal world means, and what if there is even one. You need to go and search, not Google, but yourself of selves. And as you do, in that moment, it will be as if the last ripple in a pond has stopped. And so we are seeing the majestic reflection of the limitless sky. If you find someone you're very stressed, or perhaps depressed, or just something's bothering you, I would recommend aligning yourself with natural imagery. So just, I guess, go on YouTube or hopefully go in nature and just play some kind of natural sound. Because in doing so, the sound will remind you of the peaceful moments and simply the rhythm of nature. What that means, a walk in a park is my energy drink, because it is making my awareness to life more. That moment where you walk in the city, if you're ignorant, you will see problems. If you're self-aware, if you're conscious, you will see the answer always being your step forward. There will be a moment in the life of any human being where, as a being, as some existential point of attention and awareness, the being will observe the ideology that is, in a sense, framing it as human. When he observes this ideology, he will see that the ideology is only kept because the experiences that one has gone through has created those values. What that means is you have lived in a certain way, and that is why right now you're in a certain life position. Now, regardless of what life position you're in, it's very important to see that you must inform yourself on the physical plane as clearly as you can. So if you have access to information, to great technologies, to good health, externally you must utilize these immediately. And don't have other people's voices in your head when you are doing things that only you really understand why it needs to be done. Because sometimes no one can understand how you experienced that dream, for example. It was significant to you. And so man must move beyond his limits. That moment where they say the gods are in the clouds, the Wright brothers understood it's time to make a plane. So, regardless of the right action, the hidden depths of man's mind is simply how, when you observe what is here, you dissolve into just an awareness of all your experiences. And if you go much deeper within yourself, you will see you will have an ability to confront everything at the same time. So what that means is, if you're sitting on the ground, at first you think, oh my God, my childhood was tough. Then you're thinking, oh my God, these couple years has been tough, and whatever, oh my God, it's going to be whatever. You see, you're thinking about these types of realities, different projections, it's as if you've opened the photo album as you've sat down in stillness in your meditation posture. In your mind, you're opening a photo album. And so as you're opening these photo albums, it's as if our mind is this constantly moving photo album where all the pictures are being relevant to one another based on our movement of it and how much we bring it into our conscious view. So what that means is how much focus we have in an idea. Because I can go back in my memory and I can remember, for example, an apple on a tree and just absorb into how that apple was cut, or for example an insect was. I could tune into that world, and the minute I do, all my imagery is walking with me. It's as if I was in a vast field, and the minute I was walking in the abstracts of my mind, every idea known to me was walking behind me. And so as I was a transparent view, the minute I looked, it was all my knowing absorbed into a moment of conception where clarity was my gaze. And so as you understand this, you become an advanced communicator. You say it's enough to call yourself the limitations that mankind has had. Do you want to be a human being who's still having the problems of mankind that has been going on for generations? No. You want to live with the clarity that is both transcendent and compassionate and efficient. Efficient means we must become extremely smart human beings. We must become so intellectual, and we must understand that our intellect is transcended through compassion. If there is no compassion, if you do not trust the life around you to love it, then you will see hatred will walk in the most deceptive forms to you. A compassionate man, an honest man, has nothing to fear. In other words, many might have thought Mother Teresa was just this old woman, but no. She was such an honest being that she realized she got rid of all the lies of her conditioning, and she looked at human beings who were dying. She saw death so real that her whole being put her whole life. It was as if a general moving the cosmos towards feeding that hungry child. Man must see things clearly. You must see the things you're uncomfortable with, because they might be things in which you might have an answer to, but other people's don't. That child who is starving might not have a solution. But you, who has more of a chance that you're not starving, have even a greater potential of finding that guy's solution. We are not here to only solve our problems. We're here to solve the problems of humankind. This is not being emphasized. Kids are not being brought up in a way where their mind is seeing, okay, I'm working for the human family, not just my elite family. The human family means that you take care of the human form, and in its ability to connect beings, you will elevate them. Humanity needs to be a clean civilization because there are great things coming here. Think of it this way. If we are in a soil, if the earth is some kind of soil, the human being is the sea. And so as the seed is planted in the soil, it begins to sprout in ways where its self-communication is the contact between a sense of extraterrestrial consciousness and a terrestrial sense of consciousness. In the sense that once your dualities fade into the only duality that can be present, and once that breaks, you will see the reality, true reality project. So there has been many times that I've suddenly become attentive of something in my abstract, in my subtler planes, in my subtler dimensions, and in a sense, in my experience, I've been focusing. So what that means is I've gone into a room, for example, and suddenly something's caught my attention, and it's not something, it's something I feel innately, but not something I'm present. And so I see that the receiver, it's as if the mind is this whirlwind, and suddenly in this whirlwind, we're picking up a few things and calling it our conscious mind. You know, in this spiraling whirlwind that's kind of toroidal in a sense, you'd kind of see that the hidden depths of your mind is where ideology ends for direct experience to begin. And the reason it's hidden for you, because you have not confronted it, because something in your reality is telling you, nobody, this is what needs to be real for you. And when I say something is telling you, it's external reality. It is your interpretation that suggests the experience you have. You are a multidimensional being, meaning that do not think that this is only what you have. If you have another computer at home and you drop, let's say, your computer here, you'd be sad, but you'd be more aware that, okay, you can go order a new one, for example. You must realize mankind must begin working with itself in new ways. The hidden depths of your mind is both your awareness to externality and your internality. You need to see that what is within you originates the external, and the minute you're aware of it, the outside ceases to exist because you have become an all-absorbent moment of direct experience. Many people think that we need to have something to get something. No, you have something, that is why you get it. And you understand these words, you will see that the law of attraction was never there to be a law. It was something you innately knew, and as you walked in great awareness, you saw that the self was the originator of any experience of other. And so as a blind man begins to open his eyes, man was never man when it looked above. There are many treasures in the hidden depths of your being. The mind begins as to be an image because the body is separated, but your mind is a collective sense of consciousness. It's as if, as I've said before, if we were to look at concentric circles, the first circle that's inside, the first circle is body. Then another circle, greater circle that's, over it, then we have the mind. And then another circle over it, then we have consciousness, and again, beyond this, you don't need imagery. I have found that in my own observance of existence, the energy that is accessible to you is relevant to how fixed your reality is. So the minute you have a transcendent experience, whether it is something that from externality is induced or something innately within you just opens your eyes in some way, regardless, your observance of what is present is your new presence. And so it's as if like the hidden depths of your mind has become the new version of you in this life. Because once you reach the edge of this plane, it's as if you have walked into that room where you can dissolve. But, for example, for me, when I reached a sense of transcendent experience within myself, I noticed that destiny is beyond any experience. It's conceptualization. Or how would I say it? Destiny, as it's seen as something that is happening, is what is just the expression that needs to happen. So what I mean by that is, you might on some subtle level feel that in your own smaller cycle of thought, you're thinking, no, there is no destiny, I have free will. But suddenly you see that all men are destined to rotate. because the earth is rotating. So as greater cycles move our bodies, when we become aware of these greater cycles, it was never an individual choice, but a collective expression, a collective, I guess, knowing through the emptiness that is you no longer being a thinker, but being a moment of existence, being a moment of being that is observing space and time in a way that it is more real of the instant of origination of awareness rather than the relationship of what you're aware of. It's like before you do something in externality, you always know kind of where you are. It's as if our orientation is not just from this dimension, it's also in how our awareness as a collective sense is maintaining its individuality. It's at times, guys, just a bit hard to talk about these things. Not too hard, it's just a bit hard because some aspects of it are like the passage in the tunnel. So it's as if someone went through a tunnel, they went through their own internal tunnel, they would see that that person could explain the tunnel to you, but there were some aspects that belonged to his experience. So I don't talk about too much of my, in quotations, spiritual experiences because they're based on my conditioning, they're my imagery, unless it is required to be communicated. So everyone is on their own unique platform of all the things they've been aware of and all the experiences they've had to right now, in this moment, be present to even listen to anything. You are able in the sense that you receive, but at some point you will see that your concept of reception and expression, as if there is no longer terminals. There's no longer from A going to B. It's all instant awareness. It's as if you saw a line that was A to B, suddenly imagine these two lines connecting into a triangle. And so when you see a triangle, an inverted triangle, it's as if the line is kept, but all internal experience is originating from a single point. And guys, it's very crucial for you to see that geometry is how you acknowledge it. Because I'm pretty sure there have been people who see triangles just as triangles, and there are people who see triangles as some fight that they are caught in. It's very important to see, guys, that you are a transcendent being. And so your externality is just how your focus is creating an experience now. I have known that in the hidden depths of man's mind, as I went deeper into the self-observance, it wasn't like an out-of-body experience for me. There was no, I've had some moments where my attention has been to my presence from outside, but there has also, there was no body. It was like as if my spiritual experience, in quotations, was just like my awareness becoming more aware of what is here and then no longer being fixed in the forms that it thought it was. To be a being who experiences your existence beyond ideology is a very profound moment. That's when you see devotion becoming significant in your life, and trust your devotion. Trust what you innately feel comfortable living for. It's not that just your life force is only in you and you need to only survive. It's not just survival. You can have the survival of the fittest game, but if you have that too long, it's as if, gosh, we're all these great minds who all can write and be in this golden age type of reality, but suddenly we're all stuck in, oh my God, survival of the fittest, that animal's bigger than me, Multidimensionality is where your experience re-experiences itself to provide you with a new sense of self-awareness. This new sense of self-awareness becomes a new engagement. So it's as if you have suddenly gone into the swimming pool and you've come out of it. Now you have a greater understanding of what's going on. The reason you come out of the swimming pool is because your purpose is not always an empty experience. Some people think that their whole life they should just go in a cave, and you can. And it's not a bad thing. It's not that you're doing less work. It's just that your physicality can be very efficiently helpful if you trust that your intuition will guide you through the proper action. What that means is life is not something where you're always a soldier in and you think you only have one shot. Life is a moment of experience that no ideology can touch because it is the originator of all that is. It's not a very small thing, it's a very huge thing when we say finding Mr. Within. It's the most deepest existential question. What are you? What is within you? What is this existential intelligence? And as who am I suddenly changes into first the who dropping and then the I dropping, you see all that you are, you in a sense are left with an am. I am. And so when the I is gone, you're mere existence. You're that clear, transparent moment where both physicality is constructing and also deconstructing, but usually people don't pay attention to the deconstruction because it's unnecessary. And and it's not unnecessary like in a very like, no, never go around this, never do these things. It's unnecessary in the sense that it doesn't serve your externality by trying to see too deeply in things also. So what that means is that if I'm seeing the cosmos within everything, my externality will get shaky if I just get dissolved into my internal experience of it. But again, this is nothing to worry about because the moment you follow your intuition and you trust life, you will see, you will flow. It's as if you're no longer just, left behind planning for things. Things flow, guys. And they flow in a very Zen way. Because it's transformative and in a sense something that does not hold on to things. The nature of experience is transcendental. And this means that man has thought he's been a flatlander, but he is not. Because man is simply one aspect of physicality interpreting itself compared to other aspects of physicality. But who is the observer of all that is? What does omniscience and omnipresence mean? And so this is where you see the hidden depths of your mind. At that edge is where the ideology is no longer meaningful because you're seeing more of the picture. And so that is also where geometry will really help you, because mankind right now is aware of a multidimensional, let's say, he's aware of this unexplored nation called imagination, right? And so he right now needs to build ships, needs to build forms, needs to utilize vehicles into creating more of a platform of external expression from his internality. You will see that when you close your eyes and you sit down, you find yourself very quickly. If you're opening your eyes and you're watching hundreds of TV screens, it's kind of hard when you're considering thousands of characters. All characteristics come down to that first decision you chose to be shaped in. And guys, when I say choice, this is a problem also with how the English language is, because when I say choice, you feel, or people feel that this choice must be taken in a sense individually. But you will see that moment in life where the system, it's as if like the way you've been running yourself has been stressed, has been depressed, has been tired, there's fatigue, and you're just there in this like agitated state. Sometimes surrendering something that doesn't work, letting go of technology that is not serving you, is a form of realization that will heal you completely. What that means is there's some methods of healing where, if someone gets injured, they go into an emergency room and there's medicine like that, and there's, for example, traditional Chinese medicine and whatnot. But there's a type of healing where you as a being self-reflectively adjust that which is in your system but is not serving your system. Because we're multidimensional beings, certain influences that can come in your reality that you are constantly trying to interpret. It's like some problem, it's as if some bird you've never seen has landed on your tree in your garden, and you're like, and you've only seen crows, and you're like, that must be a crow. Could there be any other bird? That's probably a crow. And you suddenly see it's a blue jay, for example. And it reminds me that the blue jays are playing. So, remember that when you study what you know, you will be the greatest designer. When you study something that is kept real for you in a very unreal way through the work of someone else, it's as if your mind is not given complete freedom to originate the first axioms. It's as if when we read that science textbook, we never got a chance to come up with those, with the understanding of that. For example, it's very important that now that we know what gravity is, for example, for kids, we create scenarios where these kids find out what gravity is. The teacher puts them on, it's like, what do you notice about all these objects? And each kid goes into that, goes under that tree where Newton stood and tries to see if he can, in his own inspiration, find it. Do you know how much our sciences will develop if we allow the new minds of our youth to engage with the most complex problems? What that means is, like, at some point you wonder, why aren't the most complex problems of us being, in a sense, introduced to children? Why are children in fluffy worlds? Why are they not getting serious projections of what is real to then completely handle it? If I think my life is, if everything is a cartoon, if you're that child who is constantly in front of an iPhone or in front of a TV screen, well, there's nothing wrong with that, and you're going to go live your life like a normal person. But at the same time, some of the first relationships of what is real is coming from an artificial source. Technology shall never replace what is real. Understand this, because you are the most realist technology. The human being is so advanced. Why do you think I say advanced communicators? Because you see, everyone is their own unique advancement into greater collective consciousness. And as drops merge, it's no longer as if we are being led. It's as if our totality has always led us, and we're simply walking in a joy of watching the beauty of manifestation. Do not bring incapability into your halls of ability. Understand that you must say no sometimes to not people around you, but to your parts of your own self, not in a way that you're limiting yourself, but seeing that there's greater work to be done. What that means is that if you are truly a writer, you are absorbing everything throughout your day and communicating it through language, through words. And so similarly, the human mind must receive every form of communication. You're not here just to learn from the communication of your teachers. You are here to learn from every sound, every form. You know, some people hug trees. Well, that's a beautiful thing. But some people hug it and also observe the beauty of its design. They understand that everything is contributing to the great work. That means that when I'm working to build something or create something, or even in these talks, it is not me talking. It is everything that I am aware of allowed to very compassionately come on the stage. That is an unhidden tongue. Clarity begins with an awareness of the intention that you are clear. You are a profound being, and this profound being is experiencing a human through its ideology. Right now, man is not sensitive, but that how you are aware of objectivity or ideology affects the potentials of how much there can be manifestation. So what that means is when I was younger, very young actually, I suddenly stumbled on this site that was talking about telekinesis, right? And I was like, whoa, that is very cool, you know? And I actually hadn't seen Star Wars by then. But I in a sense, tried to move an external thing without moving my hands. And I wondered, can objects move? I mean, I have an intention to move my arm. Now, can that object move if I don't touch it? And so I stood there observing it, and, you know, I had my youthful mind, you know, trying it and seeing if it was the wind or if it was me moving the object or something, if there was a paper thing you put on a needle, PSI wheel or something, I don't know, whatever. But what I'm telling you is that at first I sought to bring change in my life only through the external relationship. But then I realized in my subtler planes, not could I just move that object, but the object was moving infinitely. So that I realized when I looked at externality very directly, I became aware of what I was experiencing, and so that is when direct experience was a natural phenomenon. It's not that you're not directly experiencing things, you know, it's just that when you analyze yourself, which is the main captain of the ship at times, you need to see that it's as if it's not that you're limited. You're like a plant growing. Every moment of your being, don't think things are being reduced. You're growing. Do you know? You're growing. And as you're growing, both in awareness and physicality, you will see that regardless of how much you think you're left behind, how much you're incapable, how much your life is the worst life or the best life, there is infinite change in the sense that no ideology is kept. You are never aware of the same memory in the same way because it's a new application. It's as if the present moment is a new receiver of everything that we have kept still in our mind. And so if we had in an instant the ability of, let's say, a celestial sage to bring the stars right in front of us as we looked at how thought could be projected in the minds of a infinitesimal mind, you would see that imagery is that which has created God and its lack. But imagery has also created ideology and theory, and so if we are not aware of imagery, we will suddenly get lost in this dynamic where we're trying to look for a nice religious story at the same time a nice scientific story, you know? And these stories are not satisfying us because we're recognizing there's greater dimensions to ourselves. We're recognizing that it's as if we're not just moving in one dimension, that our externality is simply one aspect of our projection, and this whole projection is kept in a greater projection. So the observer is always beyond the object of observance. That moment when you were looking at people from a terrace, you were the observer of the moment in which they existed. Our problem is that we're going from a civilization that is keeping its being civil through imagery that creates it in a certain way. But as that imagery is observed, you are given a greater ability to choose how much you want to feel the rain when the cosmos is pouring moments of being. I hope that this talk has served you. And I hope that you realize you're the only one who can, in the most greatest way, serve yourself. And guys, playfulness is by far the best route, you know? Regardless of what practice you do, playfulness is like that moment where you stop trying to do something and just go with the flow of the river. Your intuition will guide you clearly. So if you are an intuitive person, Be very playful and realize sometimes if you're very playful, you will suddenly become very interested in sciences and theory and many teachings, but in a healthy way. In the sense that you are always playful, you're not taking it seriously, but you're working with it in the most serious way. It's as if that moment, it didn't matter what happened to the machine you were inventing, because you knew, you had the knowing and you went in, you know? So, there is no empty page when all is being written now. But in the lack of words and in the dissolution of words, there is always the emptiness in which form presents itself. So, in a certain way, actually, the page is also always empty. May the hidden depths of man's mind remind him of the infinite potential of his being. And you are the experiencer of all objects of experience. And that is no little thing. Much blessings and namaste.